Gang, gang. I gotta strive with drive and run up that money, I can't waste no time. I do this for Jay, do no line. They steady be dissing, I ain't gonna respond.
Yes, sir. So we recording, got my man out, man. Look, we at 52nd and Larchwood, 52nd and Pine, in between, you know, legendary Malcolm X Park, one of my favorite parks. And this is just another episode of Confessions of a Convict. You know, y'all already know what it is. So I ain't gonna hold y'all up with too much talking. I'm gonna let him introduce himself.
So yeah, this is Al from Southwest. Born and raised in Philadelphia, of course, the Southwest section of the city. 50th Street, 49th Street, you know, 49th in Baltimore, 50th between Warrenton and Florence. All around there is where I grew up, my stomping grounds. Thank God for where I grew up at, man. I learned a lot, I seen a lot, done a lot. So yeah, that's Southwest all day.
So how would you describe your childhood?
My childhood was, I would say I had a taste of both worlds in my childhood because like in my mother's house, you know, it was my mom, my uncle, and my grandmother. So I had that side, and where I seen a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have seen as a child. You know, like addiction was part of my family. Addiction is part of my story. So I saw a lot of stuff that a child shouldn't have seen. But then the other side of my family was my grandfather, my aunt, and my other uncle, which was more structured. You know what I mean? It was more disciplined. You know, that side of the family, you know, they went to work every day, had city jobs, good jobs, came home, you know what I mean? Cooked dinner, like it was a household. So, you know, so part of me, like in my mom's house, it was kind of lenient because, you know, people were doing what they wanted to do. So I didn't have that much structure over me there. So I kind of, like, don't get me wrong, my mom did the best she could do, and I love my mother, a strong woman, you know, but she got caught in the grip. So growing up there, I pretty much did what I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I started running the streets at an early age. So I had the taste of both worlds. But then when I went to my grandfather's house, it was more strict. If I was there, I had to go to school. I had to get up and go to school. Had to be in the house at a certain time. You know, if I was asked to do something, I had to do it. You know, so that's why I say I had a little taste of both worlds. But I learned from both sides. Like, taught me a lot. You know, taught me a lot. Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, as far as like in my mom's house, I learned, like, I guess I learned how to carry myself from, like, in the streets, like seeing a lot of stuff. Like my mom always had company in and out the house. I seen fights and, you know, grown people arguing and fighting, and, you know, seen a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff. I seen drug usage, stuff like that. So, like, that gave me, like, the rawness. I learned, like, the rawness of life. Like, damn, like, this shit real. Like, people, you know, this is going down. But then on the other side, like I said, I learned that everybody don't live that way. I learned that everybody is not caught up with addiction. Like, people go to work, people got lives, they got jobs, they got structure, discipline. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's there. That's what it was. But like I said, I wouldn't take. I appreciate everything from both sides. And don't get me wrong, like, my family loved me. They loved me. They love me with the flaws and all. You know what I'm saying? So I'm great, and I thank God for my family.
So let's get into this. Tell me about school. What was school like to you? Give me the raw version of your experience in the Philadelphia school system.
The Philadelphia school system, man. Let me just say this first. I did not like school because I struggled with math. Like, reading was my favorite subject in grade school coming up. Reading comprehension, I would ace those tests. I did very well. But I hated math because I struggled with math. So anything that was connected to doing math, I was frustrated because I didn't understand it. And I guess for lack of a better word, I wasn't disciplined. Like, I had poor study habits. So that made me dislike school. Like, when it came to math, I did not like school. And so as I got older and I started rebelling, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So once I learned I learned every exit in the schools from Shaw all the way up to West. Like, I learned how to get out the school, every exit. So it made it easier for me to cut classes. It made it easy for me to get out of there. And eventually it got to a point where I just stopped going. But yeah, I didn't like school. I didn't like school. You had to be on point. You had to.
Now,
be
what
on,
school is this?
This was I'm gonna say I started learning how to really like be aware of my surroundings when I got to Shaw.
What was that like?
And at that time it was Shaw. It was called Shaw Junior High. I don't even think it's Shaw anymore, but at one point it went from Shaw Junior High to Shaw Middle School. But when I first got there, it was Shaw Junior High, and it was like I started seeing things that I wasn't seeing. And like from 1 to 5, grades 1 to 5, I was seeing stuff in Shaw that I was not seeing from grades 1 to 5. So when I got to Shaw, you know, like I can remember experience like going to use the bathroom and going in the bathroom that was crowded with people. They were smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, shooting dice. People were carrying weapons, all kinds of stuff, fights all the time around the clock. I've actually seen a teacher and a student fight. And that like kind of blew my mind. But the student brought it on himself because actually the student, he swung on the teacher first. And it was kind of like the teacher was anticipating that. And once he swung on the teacher put it on his ass. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's deep. Like seeing that in school, I was like, wow, this thing real. You know, but I did like sports though. I've always liked sports. But I couldn't maintain the sports because my grades were not good. But I remember being on the gymnastics team at Shaw, and that was a good experience, traveling around the city to different schools and competing. I only really knew how to do one thing in gymnastics. I didn't know how to flip. I did the horse, and I only had a couple moves on the horse. But like, I can remember going to different schools. I think we went to Pepper, and we had a gymnastics meet with them, and I remember getting on the horse and doing my routine, and I remember sitting down, and then the other school went up, and this guy got on the horse, and he killed it. And I was like, wow, I really don't know the horse. Like, you know what I'm saying? But that part of school was fun. You know, the sports, making friends, of course, the girls, you know. I did enjoy that, but because of, like I said, my poor grades, it discouraged me. I didn't have the discipline to study. And so eventually, you know, I just I reverted to the streets.
Well, how far did you go in school?
I went up into I remember being left back for the second time in the 9th grade. I was going to West Philly High. And at this point, I was turning 17 or had just turned 17. And I was like, yo, and at that time, you know, this was the early 90s. So the crack era was heavy. Like, a lot of people were selling drugs and kids coming to school with wads of money and fresh gear and new sneakers and jewelry, you know, and that's what I wanted. That's what I was attracted to. And like I said, after being left down for the second time in the 9th grade, and I looked up, I said, damn, man, I'm 17. I decided, now looking back, I realized it was a piss poor decision. But I decided to drop out, and I said I'm going to sell drugs. And so I went to my neighborhood where they were selling drugs, and I started selling drugs. And I was selling drugs, and I can remember I had bought a stolen car off of somebody, and I done that twice. I got caught for it. Got caught twice for buying a stolen vehicle. Till this day, I don't know how to steal a car, but I had drugs and I had money, and I gave it to the guy. He had the keys to the cars. The cars were stolen, of course. So what eventually happened was I was arrested, and then I was sent to Glen Mills, and that was a blessing in disguise, because by me going to Glen Mills, I was able to get my GED, and that was the first time in my life that I actually studied. And it paid off. I remember taking a GED test for the first time, and I failed it, and I failed it by 1 point, right? 1 point. So they gave us time to go back and restudy. They gave us a few months to restudy, so we can take the test again. And this time I passed, right? This how I kind of know like college probably wasn't for me. I passed the test, but I only passed by 1 point. The 1 point I needed was the 1 point that I got, but I studied. But by me doing that, I proved to myself that if I've set my mind to something, I can do it. And you hear that all the time. You hear people say, you put your mind to something, you can do it. Well, I actually experienced that with that because, you know, I was determined on graduating. You know, I had, you know, of course I was sharing with my family back home that I'm studying for the GED, and they were excited for me, and I wanted to graduate. And I failed it by that 1 point. But I didn't when I failed it by the 1 point, like I didn't let it totally get me down, but I knew I had to study. And I really actually took that time and I studied and I passed. And I was able to get my GED, and I thank God for that.
You mentioned Gwen Mills. Was that your first arrest? If not, tell us about your first arrest.
No, that wasn't my first arrest. Actually, my first arrest, if I can recall, may have been 1988 at Shaw Junior High. I had got caught writing on the wall, graffiti. Boom, me and another dude. We writing on the wall. So the home ec teacher, if I'm not mistaken, her name was Miss Kimbrough, I believe. She was the home ec teacher at Shaw. And her classroom was like in that hallway right beside the stairwell. So we writing shit on the wall. Boom, bang, boom, you know, graffiti. And she happened to come past and saw us. So me and my man, and it's crazy because the dude I got arrested with, I still see him from time to time. And so she saw us and we took off running. We run up the steps, we running down the hallway. So she naturally couldn't catch us. But I remember her calling for the gym teacher. Like, help, like grab them. And that's how we got caught. So the gym teacher was fast. He ran us down, gripped us up. And that was my first arrest. I remember being arrested. I remember being taken out to school in handcuffs. And the thing about it, I wasn't embarrassed or nothing. Like, and it's funny because I remember like my mother having to come pick me up from 55th and Pine. She came to pick me up, and I remember it was cold as shit in that box. It was in the box. It wasn't an actual jail cell, but it was a box with the glass door and the windows you could see out, and it was cold in that joint. But my mother came to get me. She came and got me, and at the time it was still during the middle of the day, and I can remember going on Baltimore Avenue afterwards, right? And I ran into one of my old heads, and my old head was like, "Well, Al, why you ain't in school, man?" So I was like, "Man, I just got out of jail." And at the time, I thought that was something to brag about. Like, I was happy to tell. I couldn't wait to tell somebody I just got out of jail. Knowing what I know now, that's not what's up. But back then, I was a kid. So I was like, "Yeah, man, I just got out of jail." So he like, "Got out of jail? What you go to jail for?" I was like, "Yeah, I got caught writing on the wall, I thought all that shit was cool, but knowing what I know now, I would have went a different route. But that was my very first arrest. I couldn't have been older than maybe between 12 and 13, I would say. Yup. Yeah, man.
So what about jail? You been to jail like as an adult?
Yes, I have. I've been to jail. I've never been upstate, but I've done a few county bits, and that was something too. So my first county bit was 90. Both county bits I did a year each time. So the first one was from like 96 to 97. And looking back on it now, it saved my life, to be honest.
But what was your walk up like at Benaire? How was that experience as opposed to being in juvenile?
Oh, well, that was a whole different experience because now it was like I say to myself, shit, I done hit the big league now. Like, cause this ain't juvenile, ain't no home passes. It ain't these grown ass men in here, and ain't nobody coming to save you. Like I said, ain't no home passes. I'm in jail. Like, so it was I had to adjust because like jail is a different culture. It's a whole different culture within itself. So I had to adjust, and to be honest, it was some fear, because it was fear of the unknown. And I would hear the story prior to getting to jail. I heard a lot of stories, a lot of misinformed stuff now that I know it to be misinformed now. But I heard a lot, you hear jail stories, and you go to jail, watch out, make sure motherfucker don't you, all that kind of stuff. To my knowledge, it wasn't nobody getting I was in the county. I was over the creek, aka the house of correction, aka the creek. The creek don't even exist no more. They shut it down. They should have shut it down because the joint was condemned when the fuck I got there. And this was, like I said, 96 to 97. But it was, I had to adjust, like, and I can remember, man, like my first night being there, I just remember hearing somebody scream, like all night, just ah. I don't know what block they were on, but you could hear it throughout the jail. It would echo, and it was in the middle of the morning, late at night, so it was quiet, for the exception of the screaming. And I don't know what was going on, but this individual was screaming, and I was just laying on my bunk like, yo, this shit is real. Like, I done got myself into some stuff now, but yeah, I remember seeing this brother get beat bad in the yard. It was a brother that was 5%er, and he had some words with the Muslim brothers, and he had said the black man is God, and the Muslim brothers took offense to that. So a few days later, it carried over to the yard, and they beat this dude so bad, like it was crazy, man. It was like, at least I would say it was that's that shit right there. He said it was so much shit in the whip. But anyway, yeah, that's my joint. That joint threw me off a little bit. But yeah, so they caught the bull in the yard, and it was at least 10 of them that jumped on this dude, man. And they beat him so bad, man. They was poking him, stomping him, kicking him. And like in the yard over the creek, right, it used to be like, it was grass, but then it was dirt. So when you would walk on the dirt or the grass, it would kick up dust. So during the time of the scuffle or whatever, it really wasn't a scuffle. They was beating the shit out this guy. And I really felt bad for him. But it was all the smoke, like all the dust from the commotion. And when the smoke cleared, man, this dude was laid out. And he was bleeding, and his face was all lumped up and scarred up. And I felt bad for him, man. And I was like, that probably was the craziest thing I saw while being incarcerated, man. Because regardless of what was said, nobody deserved that. You know what I mean? Like, damn.
How your last incarceration? How did you do your bit? What was your frame of mind? What was your daily activities or way of?
Well, my last incarceration, I was very, very angry. Right? I was real angry, and I was mad at the world. And so when you get to jail, at some point in time, they give out a list for you to put phone numbers on. And I can remember them saying, if you want a phone list, come on, sign up for the phone list or what have you. And I remember standing in my cell, and I was like, man, I don't want no effing phone list. I'm not calling nobody. I don't need to talk to nobody. I'm going to do it from the muscle. All that pent up anger, right? So, and then something said to me, which I believe now was the Holy Spirit, to be honest. I believe it was the Holy Spirit. The small voice said, bro, you mad at the wrong people. You should be, if you're going to be mad at somebody, you need to be mad at yourself, because you put yourself here. And which was true. I put myself there from my behavior, from my actions. Something I did, and I paid for it. And I should have went to jail. So at that point, I changed my mindset. I said, I'm going to stop playing the blame game. I'm going to stop playing the blame game. I'm going to take accountability for my actions. And I'm glad I done that, because I believe it made my last bit that much better. So all that pent up anger and aggression, I kind of like focused it on, how can I better myself? You know what I'm saying? Like, Al, it's time to stop playing the blame game, bro. I did something I shouldn't have done, and I went the fuck to jail, and I should have went. Because by me going to prison once again, it saved my life, I believe. Because at that time, I had fell back into some things that I was doing. I picked up some old habits again, and they was taking a toll on me. So by me going to jail this time, it gave me a chance to get away from that stuff. So I was able, I started. Well, I've always went to church. I was going to church in jail. I had several jobs in jail. I did a lot of reading, did some exercising. I should have kept the exercising up, but it fell off once I got out here. But like, I was doing things to keep my mind good. I stayed away from the negativity. The negative, because it's more negative. Sorry to say, it's more negative. It's more negativity than positive stuff in jail. And jails ain't really built to be. They supposed to. I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Rehabilitate.
Rehabilitate. That's what they say, but it ain't set up that way. For those that been to jail, know exactly what I'm talking about. I've heard more conversations from people in jail about how, instead of talking about how can I prevent this from happening again, I heard more conversations about when I get out this time, I'm gonna do it this way. I'm going back to the block. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. As opposed to, like, my mindset was, I didn't want to do the same thing that brought me here, so I had to do something different. So I stayed away from the negativity, and I mind my business. I can remember calling home, and I called home, and my youngest son was at the house, and I was glad I had a chance to talk to him. And I remember him asking me, he was like, "Hey Dad, ain't nobody try you in there?" And I had to laugh. I said, "No, ain't nobody tried me here, son, but I ain't tried nobody neither," because I didn't want to give my son the impression that I'm running around the jail, this big tough dude, and I'm causing all this ruckus. No, that was not my story. I minded my business. I stayed out of the way. I stayed out of my own way, and people didn't bother me, man. My interactions in jail was like mostly good.
What was readjusting like for you coming home? How was that process?
Well, readjusting was, you know what? To be honest, man, readjusting wasn't that hard for me because my mind was made up. My mind was made up to the point where I said I am not going back. I don't plan on going back to prison. So my mind was made up to do what I had to do. Probation, parole, some requirements. I had to walk off that. I had to report. I kept a job. I did what I had to do. So readjusting wasn't that hard for me. And then on top of that, I got released right as soon as the pandemic hit. The pandemic hit in March, and I was released March of 2020. I was released in April of 2020. So the reporting to the PO, the physical reporting, we didn't have to do. Everything was a phone call, which I appreciated that. But like I said, once again, it didn't matter to me because my mind was made up. I wasn't coming back out here on some nut stuff. My plan was not to go back to prison, and I still think like that to this day. So readjusting for me wasn't that hard.
What's life like now for you?
Life now for me, I would say life is good. I ain't got a whole lot of money. I ain't got a whole lot of materialistic stuff, but I got peace of mind. And life is good, man. I got a job. I got a loving and caring God that I pray to, that I trust, that I believe. I got good friends in my life, people that's doing positive stuff, people that genuinely care about me. And if they see me straying off, I believe they'll pull me up, man. So my life is pretty good.
Any regrets?
No. I wouldn't say I have regrets, but knowing what I know now, even from my childhood up to this very moment, I would have done some stuff differently. But I don't necessarily say I got regrets because everything that I went through up to this very moment, I learned. And it made me who I am today. Am I perfect? No. But, I'm grateful for my life, though, because it could have been a lot worse. So I don't have any regrets.
And in closing, what do you want people to know about you?
Well, I would like people to know about me that I'm not a monster. I've made some mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a monster. I don't genuinely set out to cause harm or destruction. But like I said, I'm a flawed individual. I'm not perfect. I'm a child of God. I'm all around. I think I'm a good person, and I got a good heart. I just want peace, man. So in order for me to have peace, I have to be a reflection of peace. I have to exhibit that. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm a regular dude, man. But I thank God for my life, man.
Any closing remarks or shout outs or anything?
I want to shout out 215 Experience. I want to shout out Legacy Vision. I want to shout out my brother Maul, or Wayne, aka Maul. You know what I mean? I just, listen, man, for the younger dudes, man, if y'all get a chance to watch this, man, jail ain't what's up. if you have an opportunity to go a different route, take that opportunity. And it may seem hard at times, and the money may seem slow, but just hold on, man. Hold on and keep faith, man, because once you get in jail, it ain't you there. It ain't no getting out. You got to serve your time, and God forbid you go on a life sentence, because it ain't no coming home for that. It ain't no round trip ticket on that one, Jack. But so if you can and try to learn conflict resolution, try to resolve your conflicts without picking up a gun, without killing somebody. Don't go from 0 to 100. Take time to think. Somebody piss you off, if you can, walk away. Give yourself time to calm down and rethink it. Because once you make that decision and you take a life, and God forbid somebody take your life, that's a wrap. It's over.
I like this joint because it's so jazzy too.
Yeah. Love me now like you love you when I die. I ain't never ever seen a ribbon in the sky. I hear what you're saying, but to me, words are lies.